Welcome back to the question and answer videos here at Silicon Dojo. So basically what I do is I go through the comment section every day looking for decent questions and then I answer the ones that I think are best for that particular day. So if you're interested in having your question answered, go down in the comment section, ask your question, try to be as specific as possible, and I might answer your question during the week. I try to do one of these question and answer videos per day, so you have a pretty good shot that I'll actually answer your particular question. Anyways, this question comes from Ibad Uzmani. Question: imagine you're unemployed and can't find a job. At this point, would you have a degree and contacts or experience and certifications? So I think this is an interesting question because this is the type of question that I get from newbies, and it really shows that they don't really understand the business world, right? I want you to understand something. Jobs are not some metaphysical type thing. One of the issues we get into right now, especially with modern media and politicians, is they kind of pretend that like business and jobs and that kind of stuff is all this kind of magical. It's magical. If you swing a dead cat over your head 9 times, you too can make 6 figures. Right? And that's not really how it works. And I know some of you are laughing. You're like, well, what do you mean about swinging a dead cat 9 times over my head and getting a job? You're like, of course I won't get a job that way. I'm gonna get a job once I get a piece of paper with some kind of title on it. That's how I'm gonna get a job. And it's like, you do realize, basically, it's the same type of thinking. It's the same type of magical thinking. One person swings a dead cat over their head, and that is obviously idiotic. Another person drops $3,000 in order to get a piece of paper, and for some reason, that seems just completely sane to everybody. And this is why I lose my mind sometimes. This is why I no longer do live videos, because this is the point in the question where I start screaming about how stupid everybody is, right? But again, I want this really to be thinking about this when you go out to get a job, to realize that this is not some kind of magical thing that happens. It's not some type of metaphysical thing that happens. That basically you have businesses out there that provide products or services to customers, and they need employees as resources to be able to provide those products and services either more efficiently or more profitably. You are being hired to make the company, wait for it, more profitable, right? And so I think if you realize that's what companies are about and that's why employees are hired, this whole thing makes a hell of a lot more sense. Again, it's very important to understand. It's not that I'm somebody that's like anti-social justice or I'm anti-equity or anti a lot of the things that are currently occurring. I just think a lot of them are very wrong-headed, right? There's this idea that the reason that people get hired, the only reason that they make money is because of where they were born or what their skin color is, or those types of things, what specific piece of paper they may have. And in reality, it's a much more complex issue, again, once you start dealing with businesses and such. Businesses are going to hire you in order to increase their profitability. If you can increase businesses' profitability, you are more likely to get hired. If you can't increase a business's profitability, you're less likely to get hired. So this is a very important thing to be thinking about when you're going out there to try to get a job. Now the first thing out of the whole of this is imagine you're unemployed and can't find a job. That is a statement unto itself, right? Again, one of the things to be thinking about is when you ask me about how to get a job in the technology world, right? There's a difference between getting a job in the technology world and getting a job. If you are unable to get a job, you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself honestly, why? Are you not able to get a job because the geographic area that you're in simply doesn't have any employers? Again, remember, in order to become an employee, you have to have companies or organizations in your area that need to hire people. If you are in an area of the world that frankly, for whatever reason, nobody is hiring, then regardless what your qualifications are, regardless of who you know, regardless of what your degree is or anything else, you're still most likely not going to get hired because there's nobody around there to hire you. So the first thing to ask yourself, if you're saying, I'm employed and can't get hired, again, we're not getting to the technology world yet, just hired at a job, is, are there actual jobs in your area? One of the things that you may need to do is just simply geographically move to someplace that has work. This has been one of the big migrations to cities for the past, 150 years. People go from rural areas to urban areas for the jobs. It's where the jobs are at, you know what I'm saying? One of the weird things that I've seen in this modern world, though, is, again, a lot of folks, they want to stay where they're at. They're like, but Eli, my family is here. But Eli, my connections are here. But Eli, all of this stuff is here. And it's like, yeah, but there aren't any jobs. There aren't any jobs. If you leave to go to some place that actually has work, you may be able to work and gain experience and all that kind of stuff. So at some point you may be able to go back to the area that you want to go back to. But the important thing to understand is if nobody is hiring in your area, again, it's just not going to matter. So one of the things that you may need to do is simply to leave. The other thing that you need to be thinking about is if you can't get hired, so there are jobs in your area, you go out to apply for jobs. You know, we're not getting the tech jobs yet, we're just going out to apply for jobs. If you're not getting hired, one of the things that you may need to do is kind of look in the mirror and ask yourself, why? Again, I hate to say, but you know, my demographic is a bit geeky. I don't know why it is, but some geeks don't like to bathe. That's its own story right there. But one of the things to be thinking about when you're going out to try to get hired somewhere, do you present a good appearance? Do you present yourself well that the employer that is going to hire you will want to deal with you for 40 hours a week? Again, one of the most hilarious things that I see with a lot of folks out there that can't figure out why they can't get jobs is they're a-holes. Not that they play an a-hole on YouTube, but they're actual a-holes, right? They are jackasses. And when they go out to try to get a job, let me explain to you what happens in that boss's mind. They sit there going, wow, this guy's a jackass, or girl is a jackass. I don't want to deal with him for 40 hours a week. Trash. Right? So one of the things to be thinking about is how you are presenting yourself when you're going out there to get a job. Now you may be saying, but Eli, I'm not talking about jobs. I'm talking about tech jobs. Well, an important thing to grasp in the real world, again, when folks are going to be hiring, is they want to see that you have been doing something. One of the big issues, and this really is a big issue, is making sure employees can simply like wake up in the morning and show up on time. Yeah, this isn't a joke. This is one of those things that should be a joke. It's not a joke, right? A lot of employees just don't seem to think that they need to show up to work on time. Some employees don't think they need to show up to work on a given day. It was very interesting. You know, I was reading something. One of the politicians out of India was talking about some of the issues that they were having with the engineering graduates that they had. And so a lot of folks think that India is going to be one of the countries that take over the world because they're pumping out so many engineering graduates. One of the interesting things that this politician was talking about, though, is that they had a really big issue with soft skills for a lot of these graduates that were coming out of Indian universities, where they were good at math and they were good at science and they had the technical qualifications that you were supposed to have, but they just wouldn't show up to work on some days. And again, this isn't a onesie-twosie thing. It was big enough that the politician was kind of losing their mind over it. Like that, for a lot of the companies that would hire, technicians and engineers, that kind of like soft skill, like you show up to work when you're supposed to show up to work. If you don't show up to work, you call in to tell the person that you're sick or your mom died or something like that. All of that kind of soft stuff right there. Apparently, a lot of these engineering graduates, they just didn't have that type of thing. And so a lot of the corporations were losing their crap because they're getting highly qualified graduates that weren't actually that capable of doing the work and actually working within a corporate environment. So one of the things to be thinking about here is that you need to go out and get any kind of job you can. The best, to be clear, the best. Get the best kind of job that you can so that you can start putting that on your resume so that you can say, I got hired by this company, I have been working here for so long, I show up on time, blah, 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 been learning the soft skills, the whole 9 yards. Again, even working in a retail environment, remember in the IT world, We have to deal with people a lot of times. One of the problems with IT people is we're not really good with people. So working in a customer service environment, working in a retail environment, you may not realize that, but that can be a valuable skill set for your tech career, because if you are used to dealing with stressed and angry and whatever customers in that kind of retail environment, when you go into the corporate world and you're in the technology world and you're working on a help desk or whatever else, you'll understand how to at least try to de-escalate the situation. You'll understand how to try to placate your users when they're having issues, all of those types of things. So one of the very big things to think about when we're talking about, if there's no job, if I'm unemployed, is get a job, get any job. It is far better to have a crappy non-tech job than simply be unemployed. One of the things that I always say is you always take your best option, right? If Cisco is willing to hire you and McDonald's is willing to hire you, by all means, pick Cisco. Pick Cisco, it's the best option. If McDonald's is willing to hire you and otherwise you're going to sit at home and drink beer and play PlayStation 4, go for the McDonald's. Again, this is a very important thing. I've seen this a lot, again, talking about Indian folks, but I've seen this a lot in the U.S. right now. There are a lot of young people in the U.S. where they really do. They pick not having a job over having a crappy job. There's this idea that somehow they lose out having a crappy job. Like, okay, it's a crappy job, it makes you $10 an hour, it's not the greatest thing in the world. I would argue it's something. There are a lot of folks out there like, no, I refuse to work at a crappy job. Well, here's the issue. Again, I started a crappy job. My first job was a place called Roy Rogers. I was a dishwasher in a fast food restaurant. That sucked. But it gave me skills. It made me understand how to deal with management. It made me understand how to do a lot of things. So you have one crappy job, then you have a slightly less crappy job, then you have a slightly less crappy job, then you have a slightly less crappy job. You get some education, you get some training, and hopefully you get somewhere someday. You have a lot of people, they just don't want to take that first step. And the problem is they don't have the resources and they don't have the wherewithal to start in the career world where they want. And so they just keep sputtering, and of course it's everybody else's fault in the world. So the first thing that I would say is go out there and get a job. And if you cannot get a job in your area, then think about why that is. Is there an issue with you, or is there an issue with your geography? Again, there is a reason why we can't keep people out of the United States on the southern border. From a realistic standpoint, it's economics, right? People want to go to where there are jobs. If there are no jobs, it can be very difficult. So these are the first things to start thinking about. Then past that, we get to this whole question of degree and contacts or experience and certifications. You folks always come up with these weird either-ors. Why is it degree and contacts or experience and certifications? Couldn't it be experience and contacts? Couldn't it be degree and certifications? Going to be certifications and contacts or degree and experience? Why do you guys come up with these weird either-ors? But basically, to break this down, when you're looking in order to get hired at a tech company, right, there's going to be a degree, there's going to be certifications, there's going to be experience, and there's going to be who you know. These are all important for different reasons. Now, the first thing to talk about is getting a degree. Do you need a degree in the modern world to get a technology job? Absolutely, utterly not. You do not need a degree. I can tell you, I have a degree. Yep. I threw it away recently. I moved here to Asheville. No lie, I have a bachelor's degree. I actually moved my bachelor's because I was in a frame and I had the bachelor's degree. I had all of it. And I realized I'd basically been sitting in the basement for the past 10 years. And so I literally threw it in the trash. That's not a joke. I threw my bachelor's degree in the trash. That's how much I care about my bachelor's degree. But the important thing to be thinking about, again, with any of these types of things, when you think about a degree or certifications, you need to be thinking about what is the point of this qualification that you're going to be trying to obtain. Now, the big problem that I see with a lot of folks that go for certifications is that they don't think about the long term of their career. Again, a lot of folks, especially when they're 18 or 19, they want to swap hard drives for the rest of their life. They want to write Node.js for the rest of their life. They want to do whatever they're doing. They're doing something right now that they just find amazeballs, and they're like, I want to do this for the next 40 years. We've all been there. We've all been there. It's crap. It's crap. After a couple of years, you're going to get really sick of doing whatever the hell it is that you're doing. This is just part of career progression. One of the biggest components of career progression is you just get really sick of doing what you're doing. I remember when assembling computers was amazeballs. wow, this is wonderful, this is great, I can't believe how much money I'm getting to assemble computers. And now, it costs a lot of money to get me to assemble a computer. I just don't want to do it anymore, right? And so where the degree comes in many times is when you're going up the career ladder and you're going to be going into management and that type of thing. So when you go into the management levels in technology, which you will most likely get to at some point, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, maybe 30 years down the road. But if you are going to be a tech professional, you're going to get into management, right? And that is a place you need to understand larger topics. That is a place where you need to be thinking about problems that have no specific answers. That is a place where you need to be reading and keeping up on what is going on in the overall industry, and then being able to make decisions based off of how you forecast the future to be. This is a place where you're going to need to be writing reports. Again, this is a place where you're going to need to be writing documentation. This is a place when you shoot off emails to subordinates or to peers, you got to make sure the pronunciation is at least horseshoes and hand grenades close to where it's supposed to be, right? And so that is one of the valuable things for a degree. So if you're going in for a management position, so an IT, department head, the head of a department, management, maybe CIO, CTO, that type of thing, having the degree is actually going to be valuable at that point in time. One of the big issues we have with young folks is sometimes, they get the degree, or within the first couple of years of getting a degree, they don't see the value there, and then they think it's worthless. And the thing is, it kind of depends on how your career works out, really. But what you do when you're 18 through 22, the real value of that, to be honest with you, may not show up for 20 years. It might not be until you're 42 years old and you're going for a job that requires a bachelor's degree and that stupid-ass thing that you wasted money on 20 years ago. That now makes sense. So that's one of the big reasons for getting a degree, especially in the IT world. The other reason to get a degree is if you're really going to go into the sciences, right? A lot of people, want to get into IT, and then they talk about getting a computer science degree. And then they're amazed. They're amazed. They're shocked. They're shocked that they have to understand math to get a computer science degree. They always look at that thing. That's what I find funny when I talk with people. They always focus on one component of something, computer, and they kind of ignore the science part. Computer science is a science, right? These are the folks that are going to be going out there and creating device drivers. These are the people that are going to be going out there and hacking the kernels of operating systems. These are the people that are going to be going out there, and they really have to understand how the code works and how the technology works to truly optimize the systems that they're going to be interacting with. I think about this. I went through the official MySQL training back when MySQL was still its own company, so a long time ago at this point, before they got bought by Sun Microsystems, and long before they got everything got bought up by Oracle. But anyways, one of the interesting things, I was sitting there and I was talking to the instructor after class one day, and they were talking about different projects that they were doing, and literally at that point, MySQL had this major contract with, it was like Travelocity.com or one of those types of companies, and what they were doing is they were modifying the kernel of the Linux operating system for a specific distribution simply so that it could optimize the performance for MySQL. So they had these MySQL database clusters, and basically Linux is a general purpose operating system, so it does a lot of things relatively well. And so what they were trying to do is they were trying to go in there and strip out all the crap that they didn't need it to do and just optimize it for doing MySQL, right? That is the thing a computer science person would do. So again, if you want to be quote unquote hacking the kernel, if you want to be creating device drivers, if you want to be doing this far more complicated things, working on the cutting edge of virtual reality and augmented reality and edge computing and really building that type of stuff, then you're going to need a degree for that type of thing. So that's why you would go for a degree. Again, is this what you want to do? I don't know. Why you want certificates, this is an important thing to understand, again, nobody seems to grasp the concept here, is why you want a certificate. Is a certificate proves that you know how to work with a specific piece of equipment or specific software, right? So when I got my MCSE is Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, and basically what that meant way back when, because it was NT 4.0, is that I knew how to administer Windows NT 4.0 systems. I could create trust relationships, even though I didn't really grasp what the hell a trust relationship was back then. I could create users and groups and permissions and do backups and all of that kind of stuff, right? I was qualified to work on Microsoft software. Here was the thing, back then, the competitor was Novell. Novell wasn't NetWare. It was NetWare. It's been a long time since I've even seen it. Anyways, Novell NetWare. They had Active Directory. They did a lot of the stuff that the Microsoft system did. But here was the thing. I wasn't certified in that. If you plunked me down at a workstation and you opened up a Novell administration panel, I had no idea what to do with that. Why? Because I was certified in Microsoft. I had no idea what the hell Novell looked like. And so that's one of the things to be thinking about with certifications, is certifications show that you are qualified in specific products. Again, this is one of the reasons that I lose my mind on live shows and try not to do live shows anymore and get really snarky and mean. When somebody from the audience will say, Eli, in order to get a job, should I become VMware certified? It's like, well, here's the thing. Do companies in your area use VMware? Does your company use VMware? If the answer is yes, maybe you should get VMware certified, right? Because that's the thing. People see virtualization. They say, I want to get certified in virtualization, cloud computing, virtualization. That is the future of technology. Whatever. But the problem, there's a lot of different products out there, right? There's VMware, there's Citrix, obviously, there's Hyper-V in the Microsoft world, and there's probably 20 different other random other things out there. Not to mention AWS and Azure and DigitalOcean and all that kind of stuff. And so here's the thing, right? Again, imagine for a second a company is trying to become profitable. They need to hire people that will make them more profitable, and they have VMware systems. If you walk in with a Citrix certification, they're probably not going to care. They have VMware. You come in with Hyper-V, they might actually care about Hyper-V because Hyper-V is built on the Microsoft stack, and so they probably actually will like you for that. But one of the big issues there is, like I say, is with this whole thing with certifications, is people aren't thinking about the end game. People aren't thinking about why are folks hiring you. They're hiring you in order to fix very specific problems. And so if you have certifications to fix that specific problem, they will hire you, and if not, they won't. Again, when I got my MCSE, I've talked about this, where technology is weirdly geographic, and so back 20 years ago at this point, the East Coast had basically standardized, like the entire East Coast of the United States, more or less standardized on Microsoft for their security services, and the West Coast, for whatever reason, standardized on Novell. So again, for me, I got Microsoft certified in the Baltimore area, and so it was rather easy for me to get a job because everybody was using Microsoft systems. If I had been on the West Coast and got my MCSE, it may not have been as easy to get a job because everybody there had Novell. Again, if somebody got Novell certified on the West Coast and they come to the East Coast, it may have been difficult for them to get a job. So if you're sitting and thinking about getting a certification, the most important thing to be thinking about here is who is going to hire you for that certification. Again, I see this with a lot of people. They want to go out there and get their CCNA. I'm going to get my CCNA and then I'm going to take over the world or whatever. And it's like, all you're going to have is your CCNA? You don't have experience. You don't have your MCSE in a CCNA. You don't have a degree in a CCNA. You just have a CCNA. How many people are actually just going to hire for a CCNA? Again, if you actually know what a CCNA is, again, it's not a bad, not technically a bad certification unto itself, but if that is literally all you have in the 2020s, I'm just not sure how valuable that is to many employers out there. And so that's one of the things that you have to be thinking about with these certifications is when you go out to get a certification, what job are you trying to get? Who have you talked to that has told you this company needs a crap ton of folks that are certified in X, Y, or Z? So that's what certifications are about. The next thing to talk about is experience. So experience is the most valuable thing as a technology professional. If you want to get a job, the best thing is to have experience. One of the reasons for this is because, frankly, not everybody is cut out to be a technology professional, and it is very expensive for employers to figure out who is and is not capable of doing technology. One of the things, again, makes me lose my mind and get very snarky many times, is if I tell you that it requires a certain personality to be a police officer, everybody will nod their head and say, well, of course. If I say it takes a certain type of personality to be a firefighter or to be a garbage collector, everybody will nod their head and say, of course. If I tell you it takes a certain personality to be a truck driver, now think about it, driving trucks, at least here in the United States, most people drive anyway. Doing truck driving certification only takes you about an additional 2 weeks. Again, nothing against truck drivers, but this is not brain surgery here. A lot of people have the physical ability and they have the smarts to be able to be a truck driver. But the reality is actually driving a truck 40 to 50 hours a week takes a certain type of personality, right? If you're completely ADHD, you probably don't want to be locked in a truck cabin that many hours in the day, right? It takes a special type of person to basically do any job and be successful at it. Again, whether you're talking about being a surgeon or whether you're talking about being a truck driver. The weird thing is when I say it takes a special type of person to be a technology professional, I get no, Eli, no. Anybody can do it, Eli. Oh, no, it's not like truck driving, Eli. It takes a special type of person to truck drive, but to code or to do systems admin, no, anybody can do that, right? People have been sold a lie. They've been sold a lie by the politicians. They've been sold a lie by the education, certification programs. They've been sold a lie by society to say, essentially, anybody can do technology. Again, it's very snarky when the journalists say this, but it also shows a mentality, right? When coal miners are getting laid off and BuzzFeed tells them to learn to code, right? That is obviously absurd. That is obviously hipsters losing their minds. But it also shows like there's this vein of thought in our society that kind of sort of we're like, hey, that's mean to tell coal miners to learn to code, but there's almost this idea that just teaching and telling a coal miner to learn to code, like, well, I don't know, is it really that harsh? And so one of the big problems that companies have is you have all these young people out there and they've been told all this amazing stuff about being a technology professional, and everybody wants the benefits. Everybody wants the benefits of being a technology professional, but then they get into the job and then they just can't do it. Again, being a technology professional takes a certain mindset. So tonight, I'm going to be doing a seminar here talking about machine vision. So using Azure and AWS, using their serverless architecture in order to do machine vision. And so in order to do the seminar tonight, I literally spent 3 days playing around with Microsoft Azure and their vision services, creating some very crappy apps in order to demonstrate how the machine vision works. But understand that takes a special mindset, right? So in order to do the seminar tonight, I had to think about a topic that people would find interesting and that I would be interested in learning. I then had to sit down and learn all this crap about Azure Vision. I then had to actually create the code and build that into some kind of component, some kind of product. All of that is going to culminate with me tonight doing a little demonstration, and basically tomorrow everything will get flushed and I will go off to the next thing. Right, that takes a mentality. That is the workflow here at Silicon Dojo, or me for Eli the Computer Guy. And that's the thing. A lot of people think, like you just do YouTube videos, right? You make money for nothing. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background. And one of the issues that I've seen with people that get into the technology profession is sometimes they're just not good at technology. Yeah, I had an employee of mine that I thought was a very fine person, annoyed the crap out of me just because they should have been in the technology profession. One of the reasons that I hired them is they were most of the way through a degree program. They were $40,000 in debt at an IT degree program. And so it's like, yeah, of course you should be able to do good here. Oh God, they were horrible. They were horrible. They were one of the few people I had to sit down and look them straight in the eye and say, I know you're $40,000 into debt for this degree, but you need to find another career, right? Oh my God, it was miserable. Like, I worked with them for months. And again, this wasn't like I fired him after a week. Months and months of being, oh my golly, is any of this sticking? What the hell? Right, and so that's one of the big problems you have in the tech field is people want the benefits of being a coder. People want the benefits of being a sysadmin. People want the benefits of X, Y, or Z. Doesn't necessarily mean they want to do a job. Again, as I've talked about before, I had to do one migration back when I was in the corporate world. We were migrating from NT4 to 2000. I literally spent 23 hours doing the migration. The migration failed at the 23-hour point. The employees were coming to the office in 2 hours, and I basically had to roll back all of the work I had done over 23 hours within an hour and a half just to keep the office at the place it had been before I had started my work. And then I went home and I passed out, and then I had to figure out what the problem was. All right, that takes a certain type of mentality. So experience is very valuable because it shows that you can actually do the work. It shows that you can actually perform. It shows that you can think through the problems. And again, have all of this kind of soft skill type. Like, you can see problems, you can determine what you think a solution can be, you can try to implement that solution, you can decide whether that solution does what it's supposed to do or not. If it does, you leave it in place. If it doesn't, you pull it out, right? There's all of this stuff that goes into being a technology professional, and that's one of the reasons that having the experience is incredibly valuable. So experience is going to trump just about everything, right? If you have experience in the technology world, again, when I talk about experience, 2, 3, 4, 5 years experience, that's gonna, in order to just get a job, that's most likely going to trump a degree or certifications or anything else. The final thing is with contacts. Contacts are very important. As a lot of people say, there's this whole thing, buzzwords, buzz phrases, smart people that want to pretend to sound so cool say. And so one of the things that I find interesting, one of those buzz phrases that are out there that, newbies like to say is, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's like, well, that's actually not the case. You know what the real phrase should be? The real phrase. It's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you. Right? Doesn't matter who the hell you know. If all the people you know aren't hiring, it doesn't matter, especially not hiring you. But if you go out there and you make your presence known, you put yourself out into the world, then if people know who you are and they know your ability level, you will be surprised how many people come to you. Again, like with me doing videos and this type of thing, I've had many contacts from many large companies saying, hey, we would like somebody like you to work for us. I don't know who the hell these people are. I don't want to work for their companies either. But again, an important thing to understand, right? It's not that I know them, it's that they know me. And so this can be a very valuable thing in the modern world. When I talk about things like business networking and I talk about things like publishing what you're doing, one of the reasons that you're doing this is that hopefully people are having conversations about you behind your back. Again, if you ever get into the normal business world, the normal corporate world, when people come to hire you or they come to try to offer you a job, many times they'll be like, yeah, me and X, Y, or Z, we have been talking about you for the past couple of weeks and we've realized we think you're the best fit for the job that we want to offer, right? It's the conversations that are being had about you that you don't even know are being had. Those are the most valuable conversations. The most frustrating thing is you don't know when they're happening and you don't know what they're saying about you. So again, consequence culture. Again, as I've talked about, I've cleaned up my 2 channels, so Eli the Computer Guy and the Daily Blog channels I've cleaned up. Again, it's not cancel culture, it's not consequence culture, it's conversation culture. When people say, hey, have you heard about this person? I think we should do business with this person. And then the other person goes, well, yeah, I was watching a couple of their videos the other day, and I'm not sure I want to be associated with that. Right? That's when things can go downhill. So I would argue what you should be doing is you should be going out there, you should be doing business networking, you should be schmoozing, you should be going to meetups. Go to every meetup you can. Again, especially if you're new and you don't have a job, you have all the time in the world anyway. What else are you going to do? Play PlayStation? PlayStation's not going to get you a raise, buckos. So anyways, go out to all the meetups or whatever, the programming meetups and the sysadmin meetups and the whatever. Go out there and talk with people. Learn what they're interested in, learn what they're looking for their companies. Tell them what you're interested in, tell them what you're looking for. Go out and schmooze that way. And then what I would say is go onto YouTube or blogging platforms and that type of thing and start publishing what you are doing. Again, I would find some kind of niche in the technology world, machine vision, Alexa skills, that type of thing. Again, something a little bit niche that higher level people may be trying to hire for. and then start doing projects and start doing like your lessons learned. I think about this with Gearling. Have you seen Gearling? Gearling is my new favorite YouTuber. Lewis is yesterday's news. Gearling is the new guy. Red shirt Gearling? I don't know, Gearling's Geerling. Anyways, he does these videos that are almost always failures. The reason I started watching him is he does all these videos about Raspberry Pis. So again, for Silicon Dojo, very interested in IoT, Raspberry Pis, the whole 9 yards. And so with these Raspberry Pis, he tries to do things like connect graphics cards, he tries to connect PCIe cards, he tries to create like RAIDs and NASes and all kinds of fancy stuff. Long story short, he usually fails. It's usually 16 minutes of him failing. But the point is, he's sitting there and he's explaining all these things that he knows about the Raspberry Pi. He's explaining all these things that he's doing to the operating system. He's explaining all these troubleshooting techniques that he's using. He's talking about all of the tools that he's using. He's talking about why. And then he talks about why it fails. Okay, this is why I think that it failed, right? And that is a very valuable thing. So, you know, if I had a company and I'm looking to hire somebody for an IoT type position, an IoT type engineer, and this person is putting out all this content and all these experiments that he's doing on Raspberry Pi, PCIe, all of that kind of stuff, even though he mostly fails. He really does mostly fail. Even though he mostly fails, this shows that he can find a problem that he's interested in. It shows that he can determine how to try to solve that problem. It shows that he can work through trying to solve that problem. It shows that when he runs into roadblocks, he can figure out how to try to get around the roadblocks. And one of the most important things with Gearling, one of the most important things, is he knows, more or less, when to call it a day. Again, that's one thing a lot of the noobs in the technology field don't understand. One of the most important things as a technology professional is knowing when the hell to stop. I call it the rabbit hole to hell. Like you start running after a problem and you don't have the ability to solve the problem, but you're not willing to accept that you don't have the ability to solve a problem. So you just start going farther and farther and farther and farther down that rabbit hole until you get fired because you were working on a $5 problem for the last month and the employer was paying you a lot of money, right? So one of the things with Gearling is he knows, at least on camera, when to call it a day. And so I would argue doing that kind of publishing, again, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's blogging, again, put in, you know, go to search engine optimization, put in the exact technology that you're working on, put in the exact problem that you're trying to solve, do that type of thing, and you'll be surprised how many people will run across you, especially if you're doing these more niche topics, and that they may offer you a job because they are looking for somebody with that particular skill set. So when you sit here and you say, what's more important, a degree or certifications, experience or contacts? It's like, yeah. Well, if we're gonna say what's most important is experience. Most important is experience. Past that, it's not necessarily your contacts, but it is who knows you. Past that, you know, with degrees and certifications, it's what are you trying to do, right? If you want to work on Active Directory systems, Microsoft Active Directory systems, you probably should be certified in Active Directory if you want to get that type of job. Again, if you want to go into management, you should probably get a degree. If you want to work on kernel, you know, the kernel level type stuff, that is a very valuable thing. So again, it's not as simple. It's not as simple a question as you think it is, and so it's not as simple as an answer as you would most likely want. So those are some of those things to ponder about with this. The most important thing is go out there and get a job. This is one I will hammer home, again, because this is in America. I'm not laughing about any other countries right now. I'm saying what's going on in the United States right now. Oh my golly, I have talked with so many young people, young adults, that refuse to get jobs that are below them. I'm just like, right? You know, if I'm hiring, again, for Silicon Dojo, hopefully we will get to the point that I will be hiring for Silicon Dojo. Again, we are currently funded from crowdfunding. Hopefully we'll get sponsorships at some point. We're going to be moving to a bigger facility. That's going to take a bite out of the budget, but hopefully, I don't know, maybe in a year or so, we'll actually be hiring for, you know, assistant instructors, that type of thing. Let me explain something. Again, imagine for 1 second, that I'm an actual human being. I know. Just stick with me for a second. As an actual human being, I have a house, and I have a wife, and I have a dog, and I have my own interests, and I really like to go home and drink a good beer at the end of the day. And I have a whole bunch of stuff that's going on outside of Silicon Dojo or whatever my work is. So when I go out and I'm going to go to hire somebody, even if they were a low-level employee, and again, most likely when I hire somebody, they will most likely be a rather low-level employee to start out with, something like an assistant instructor. So they'll get up to speed on Arduino, they'll get up to speed on like Raspberry Pi, those types of things. And basically the idea is when I'm not around, when people come into the dojo and they're working on something and they're like, oh yeah, I want to work on this particular recipe, this particular project, and I need an Arduino, I need this and that and the other thing. And basically the assistant can go off and grab those components for them and basically give it to them. Then hopefully the assistant will also be able to do some basic troubleshooting. Hey, I can't figure out why this LED won't blink. And the assistant can come over and go, oh, because you've screwed up the positive and the negative. If you just flip it around and plug it back in, oh, now your LED is blinking. Or, oh, maybe your LED burned out. They're 1 cent little parts. Sometimes that happens. Plug in a new LED. Oh, look, it's blinking. Yeah, there wasn't an issue with your code. It was just a bad LED, right? That's the type of thing that I would need from an assistant, and who knows, I'll be able to pay the assistant based off of whatever income we have coming in. Again, when we talk about salaries, when we talk about paying people, what seems to get forgotten in this modern world of politics and modern media is you can't pay people more money than's coming in. Would I love to pay an assistant $20 an hour? Yes, I would absolutely love to pay an assistant $20 an hour. Do I believe that will be feasible in the next couple of years? No, absolutely not. But again, so I'll have somebody come in, they will get low-level pay. Probably $10 an hour, maybe $12.50 an hour, if we can swing it, whatever else. Anyways, so for that type of job, I'm going to need somebody that knows a bit about technology, I need somebody that's going to have some decent customer service skills, and I need somebody that's going to be able to show up and unlock the door, right? Again, that's the whole thing. Like, as the creator of this, I come in and do this type of work. I build out the facility. I deal with the toilets. I deal with a whole bunch of stuff. So at some point, I can hire somebody at $12.50 an hour just to open the doors in the morning. Anyways, so when I go to hire somebody, I am not going to need somebody with a massive level of experience. I may not even need somebody that with help desk experience or anything like that, but I am going to need somebody that I feel confident will show up on time, right? If the dojo opens at 10 a.m. or whatever in the morning, I need it to open at 10 a.m. I don't need it to open at 10:05. I don't need it to open at 10:10. I don't need to hear about how your car broke down. I need the dojo to open at 10 a.m. If we have people coming in, they're going to expect it to open at 10 a.m. And if the doors aren't open at 10 a.m., there's all kinds of problems. It doesn't matter what your particular excuse is. The reality is the issue is the doors weren't open at 10 a.m. I'm going to need to know. I'm going to need to feel comfortable that if I put you into a semi-stressful situation, that you're going to be able to reasonably deal with it. I start screaming at people. Don't scream at the students. Can do almost anything. Don't try to have sex with them and don't scream at them, please, right? But I'm going to have some confidence there, right? So if I'm sitting there and let's say I'm looking at a 19-year-old. So a 19-year-old around here making $12.50 an hour, maybe they're still living with their parents, and I'm looking at a couple of 19-year-olds. And so I have one 19-year-old that goes home and they work on these little projects and they know stuff about Arduino and the whole 9 yards, and they don't have any work experience though. They haven't worked at McDonald's. They haven't run cable for Comcast. They haven't done anything. They have been waiting for a job that is good enough. They're going to look me in the eye. They're going to look me in the eye and say, Eli, I just want you to know, I have not wanted to take a job that was below what I feel that I'm worth. But Eli, I want you to know, I really want you to take this in, Eli. I think you're worth me. At which point we're like, because here's the thing, jobs are jobs. Jobs are jobs. Trash is always going to have to get taken out. You know, floors are always going to have to get swept. You're the $12.50 hour cent employee. You're going to get all the crap work. If you weren't willing to work at McDonald's, if you weren't willing to work at a help desk, if you weren't willing to run cable, if you weren't willing to do those things because it was below you, here's the thing, I know the job here. I have an MCSE. I have over 20 years experience. I sweep floors. So if I have somebody coming in there with that kind of mentality, it's like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to have to question whether my freaking employee with no experience, no real world experience is going to tell me what I'm asking them to do is below them. Again, the other thing to be looking at is you have somebody that seems pretty qualified, again, 19 years old. They haven't had a job or whatever. Again, the question, are they going to wake up on time? Are they going to show up when they're supposed to? The whole 9 yards. There may be somebody else. And again, maybe all they did is work McDonald's. They're like, Eli, look, I've spent the last 2 years, I got a job at McDonald's working in the front counter. I've been doing it for the past 2 years. I wanted to go off and learn more about technology. I wanted to go off and get a degree. I haven't been able to earn enough money to do those types of things. College degrees have gotten ridiculously stupid in the United States at this point. But I'm willing. I work 40 hours a week at McDonald's. I come in every day on time. I always smile to the customers. I'm able to remember orders. I'm able to remember what people are talking about, the whole 9 yards. Right? I call up the manager, because at this point I am going to call back in recommendations. I have learned that lesson. I will then say, hey, can I have a cup of coffee with you, manager? Because this is Asheville. And so if I'm going to do a recommendation, I might as well sit down and have a cup of coffee with the person to really understand what's going on. Try to buy the manager a cup of coffee and see what they say about this particular person. Now, this particular person, again, may not know very much about Arduino at all, may not know much about a lot of things, but they come in on time, they do their work, right? They're good with customers, the whole 9 yards. I sit there. I'm not sure how far they will progress with Silicon Dojo. I'm not going to say that they're going to be some senior instructor down the pike. But if I'm looking at these different candidates, I am far more likely to hire the McDonald's employee because McDonald's wasn't below them. If they're making $10 an hour or even $12.50 an hour at McDonald's, and I'm like, well, I'll pay you the exact same amount to work at Silicon Dojo. And they're like, wow, so you guys don't have fryers here, do you? Like, no, it's a computer education place. Wow, and nobody's gonna probably come in and try to rob you for what's in the till. It's like, yeah, no, we don't have a till, and most robbers wouldn't know what to do with what we have. Wow, yeah, so I can make the same amount of money or more, and I'm not greasy at the end of the day. I don't stink like fryer grease every single night. Yeah. And that person knows what they're getting into. I feel more comfortable with that type of person. So these are some of the things to be thinking about. And that's where I see with so many folks nowadays with this whole thing about, jobs are below them or whatever else, is if, you've really got to think about that from the employer standpoint. If working a bad job is below you and you have no other options on the table, and most employers know their jobs are crappy. I mean, jobs are crap. Again, you guys don't see what goes on behind the curtains, right? I've got to go out and buy chairs. I've got to take out trash. I've got to sweep. There's a lot of tedious crap that goes on, especially as this grows, right? If we have 30 people, 20 or 30 people coming in through a day, there's just going to be a lot of just crappy work to do. People are going to spill sodas. Somebody's got to mop up the damn soda. There's going to be a lot of stupid stuff. And so what I see with a lot of folks out there is when they say, I'm not going to work on a job that's beneath me, it becomes very concerning for an employer because they know what their job is. And it's kind of like, well, what's going to happen when you decide this job is beneath you? Which will probably happen in about a week. Yeah. So some things to think about there. Some things to think about. All of these things, degrees, contacts, experience, and certification, these are specific concepts. Imagine that the person that's going to be hiring you is a real, actual human being, and then ask yourself, how do you believe you will actually bring more profit to the company that you're going to get hired by? And if you think about that type of stuff, all of these questions become a hell of a lot easier, I would argue, at the end of the day. Well, anyways, that's the answer, or my answer at least, to that particular question. If you want to ask a question yourself, again, down in the comment section, you can go and leave a question here. I try to do one question per day at this point. If you would like to support Silicon Dojo, so I can pay somebody any amount of money, think about throwing some money down, donorbox.org/ETCG. Again, we are currently in this 300 square foot office. In the next few months, I would like to upgrade to about 1,000 square foot office so that we can have normal lab hours, actually have people coming in, really make Silicon Dojo what it's supposed to be. Again, business is business. You can buy what you can afford. You can pay the amount you have in revenue type of deal. So if you want to throw some money in there, that'd be lovely. If you want to sponsor us, sponsorships are actually rather inexpensive. You can email me, eli@elithecomputerguy.com if you're interested in sponsorship. I swear, I'm trying to be family friendly now. I am doing my best to be family friendly. I swear, you're not going to feel bad for sponsoring me. Let's see, so those things. If you want a one-on-one meeting with me, so many people have one-on-one meetings with me to talk about their career, talk about education, talk about improving their tech business, those types of things. If you go to silicondojo.com, on the right-hand side, there's a link for the one-on-one consultations. You can click on that and grab a time. I've had people come all the way from Augusta, Georgia, and Raleigh so far, so apparently it's a useful thing to folks. If you want to come to the meetups, again, tonight I'm actually doing a seminar on vision, computer vision, using serverless architecture, basically being able to send images up to Azure, having Azure process what's in the image, and then tell you what's in the image. Very interesting thing. So I have classes like this. We've done that. We've done DNS for cybersecurity in the past. We've done a whole bunch of different things. If you'd like to come to those meetups and you're in the Asheville area, go to Silicon Dojo on the right-hand side, click on the meetup, and sign up, and start coming to the meetups. And is there anything else? Yeah, I think that's about it. That is about it at the end of the day. And there's a link down below if you want to throw some money in donor box. Money? Money? Oh, Eli, you're just an e-beggar. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Be proud of who you are. You're just an e-beggar. Yes, yes. I take ownership of my e-beggarness. But anyways, it's helping this thing succeed. So, trying to do free hands-on technology education to the end user. I think it's a decent thing to try to throw some money at. But that's just my thought. So anyways, as always, I enjoy doing this video, and I hope to see you here at our Asheville, North Carolina Silicon Dojo facility, if not soon, at least, within the next little while.